department. And here on our fourth episode, I'm happy to be joined by our first spring coach here on Hawk Talk. And we'll get the thoughts of the spring that wasn't with the Monmouth women's golf coach and my good friend, Michelle Melia. And Michelle, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Eddie. Thanks for having me on tonight. Super excited to be here.
Well, it's great just to see you. I haven't seen you in obviously quite a while. And, before we talk any golf, before we talk anything that's going on with your program, I think the first thing everyone wants to know, how are you? How are your family doing during this time?
We're doing real well. Thanks for asking. It's obviously been a transition for everyone, but everyone's healthy. And so that's number one. And number two, I've actually been relatively busy, busier than I expected to be, considering, we're in the middle of what's going on with the pandemic, but we're all good. Everybody's healthy. My players are healthy. So on that front, we're in good shape.
The first three conversations that we had, it was with the head basketball coach, King Rice, our two soccer coaches, Chrissy Turner and Rob McCourt. This is unique, Michelle, because it's the first conversation that we've been able to have with a coach whose season was actually completely stopped. I know you had started a little bit. Basketball for Coach Rice, it ended at the tail end, but you were right in the thick of things. So I know this affected you and your student athletes a bit differently than it did some of the other coaches that I spoke to.
Yeah, Eddie, I would tell you what, it was a really interesting, thing that occurred for us. We actually were on our way to Hilton Head to play in a big event right before spring break when we got the call and got pulled off the road. So for our players, we have a pretty young team and a team that, we really were building some steam as we got into the spring. Very pumped up to go down the Hilton Head and get going and get really ready for Max. We thought that we had an outside chance to make some noise this year. So one of the things for us that was so interesting, and in my career coaching, we had the week that we left, I had a great conversation Wednesday night with our sports supervisor, Gary Cowell. He said, hey, we're ready to go. You guys can go. The MAC basketball championship is continuing. Our team got in a van at 6:30 in the morning and started our way down to North Carolina. And we got the first call at 11 a.m. from the athletic department saying that we could continue, but we had to return back to campus on that Monday. So it was one of those surreal moments that as we were driving, we were getting, because of social media, we were getting reports all over the place for different conferences were canceling. The Patriot League had canceled at that point. We were hearing from other teams on campus that potentially spring break wasn't happening. So I pulled the team together. We were in a rest stop in Virginia. We talked as a team, do we want to continue to go? And our players unanimously were like, Coach, we got to keep going. We'll continue. And we really felt at that point, Eddie, grateful that it was potentially that we may be the last team that would have an opportunity to participate. So we continued on our way, and we got to North Carolina. Interestingly enough, the second phone call happened also in a rest area, but this call was from Dr. McNeil. So when I saw the call and I was out of the van and I answered it, I knew the news was coming, that basically we needed to come off the road. She was so emotional about it on the phone. I was emotional about what was happening. Of course, my mind was in a million different directions. What did this mean? Was it just a season? What was going to happen with school? And we had a 10-hour ride back. So, it was a moment in my career in the last 20 years that I'll never forget. And to see the reaction that our players had, was like through the roof, everything you can imagine, from anger to upset, being upset about the season ending and what were we going to do next. If anything, Eddie, I'll tell you, there were two things that we got out of it. One, as a team, real perspective for the opportunities that we get on a regular basis. I talked to one of my players yesterday, and she said, man, I miss 6:30 a.m. lifts. I'm not sure she would have said that in December. So that was number one. And the second thing, too, I think, when we stopped on the halfway back to get back to campus, I reached out to Dr. McNeil because I truly felt blessed and grateful that the department and university allowed us to continue our season. I mean, literally, Eddie, to the last minute. The last mile, the last minute, they were all in. I think it really represents what Monmouth is about. I think it really represents what's like our program is about. And I knew going back that we were going to get the support to get our players in the right spot, whether that was home back to West Virginia, Florida, figure out classes, those type of things. So it really was one of those moments that I truly will not forget. I know my players won't. And I think long term will end up being a great learning experience for all of them.
First of all, you never want a trip to Hilton Head cut short. Doesn't matter what time of year it is, and that's among many things, a huge unfortunate part for your team. But I have to kind of ask you one part about that ride home. You know, Michelle, you got the news. It's one thing, we were all in Atlantic City at a basketball tournament. That's about an hour and a 15-minute ride home. You get home, then you can kind of digest things. You had to ride, like you said, 10 hours with a group of student athletes who were upset that their season had just ended. What was that ride like back to campus? I'm sure you've had all of the emotions, kind of the roller coasters of what we were all going through on that ride home.
Yeah, Eddie, that's such a great question. I'll tell you what happened. The first thought was, there's no way I can take these kids home right this second, right? Because there are so many emotions, so many things that we had to handle. And here's a really also great thing about Monmouth University. My next call was to our compliance officer, AJ, to make sure that we could somehow split the trip up. So we didn't have to make the trip back all, in one shot. So he said, yeah, that we were able to do that, from a compliance standpoint. We stopped halfway. We found a hotel that was able to get us, lodging for the night. We pulled the group together. We had a team dinner, and we talked as a group about what we had learned from the experience of that day. One of the things I had told them, and this is what always hits me as well, and all of our players, and the same thing in Monmouth in general, most of my girls probably won't have an opportunity to play professional golf. It's very possible, right? This may be it. They have spent their entire lives getting ready for this moment. And there was real perspective at that point that we need to be grateful for every single opportunity and chance that we have. So it turned out to be a positive experience. This team, I thought, was close in the fall. They were certainly a whole lot closer coming back the rest of the way on that van ride. And again, something that I will never forget. I learned a lot that day about my players and about our program, and and about myself too.
I think that's such a great story, and I think it kind of speaks to the entire process we're all going through now. We all hope to, at a later time, look back at this time and how we all were able to grow and get better. It sounds like your program and you are going to have that opportunity. And we are speaking with the head women's golf coach at Monmouth, Michelle Melia, in her second season. If you have questions for Michelle, please get them into our chat live here, and those questions will get relayed over to me. And obviously this conversation will be archived here on Facebook, but also on monmouthhawks.com as well. Michelle, you've been a very successful coach before you get to Monmouth. You get to Monmouth, which is home for you, and this team kind of right away starts improving and starts playing really great golf as a team, starts coming together. What were the things when you came back to Monmouth and you took over this program that you wanted to accomplish? Although it's year two, this program seems to be ahead of the curve from where maybe even you expected they would be at this time.
Yeah, I tell you, there's a special group of kids that we have, and it's very interesting. Just a quick side note to this. Before I got the opportunity to come back to Monmouth, I had been offered a couple positions at other universities, and they weren't really a great fit. And I had a conversation with my mom, and I said that, and this was before the opportunity was even available at Monmouth, and I said, there's one place that I want to go. If the Monmouth job opens up, that's the job I want. Like, no doubt, sign me up tomorrow. Sign me up yesterday. I want to be back at Monmouth University, and for a number of reasons. And one of the big things is that I always I'm reluctant to use the word rebuilding because I don't think it's about rebuilding. I think this is an evolution of a program that over the last 20 years is growing and under the leadership of Dr. McNeil. More scholarship opportunities, more opportunities for competition, and a competitive experience to get these players to a really good level. So when I got the position, I was super excited to be back at Monmouth, but also my vision was to create an environment in which we would have a championship program, not just for MAC play, but eventually down the road be really the gem of the East Coast, like the Northeast. And what can we do to make this program and elevate it to get to that level? So I wanted to really take what has already been here, the building blocks of what's been here in the last 20 years, and really kind of step it up. So I'm very fortunate that I had a year to go out and recruit some great student athletes to build around a nucleus of returners that we had from the first year I was here. So it's been so exciting. They're young. My captain's a junior. My assistant captain's a sophomore. I mean, this is a young group. We have 4 freshmen who we have in the starting lineup. They've all won individual championships already. So certainly, you're right, we're kind of around the curve, but we're nowhere near where we're going to be. And I think we really are starting to get the building blocks to really take us to another level. So it's a special place. And I will tell you that, and my family can attest to it. I told them last summer that this is probably the most special group of kids I've ever worked with. And I don't know whether it's the timing being back at Monmouth or just the players themselves, but it's an exciting time for women's golf at Monmouth University, and I think we're going to see some really great things over the next 4 years from them.
And I'm excited to dive into this program and this group with you during our Hawk Talk conversation. But before we do that, we have to kind of take that step back. How is the team doing right now? I know that you're able to keep in touch with them, and right now it's exam week at Monmouth. Actually, I believe yesterday was the first day of exams for students. So in your conversations since the season was canceled and since schoolwork was moved to remote, how has it been keeping up with the team, and how are they doing?
They're doing very well, Eddie. I think one of the things that after we got back to campus, and one of the things that I think we all got grounded in the fact that the season was over, this happened, things were going to switch and change. So one of the things that I wanted to do was make sure that we use this time that we had as bonus time. So working on skills that are outside of mechanics. I've been asked several times by different people, how are you running virtual practices with a golf team? And the majority of our team haven't been able to play because the golf courses have been closed. So there's a lot more to golf and competitive golf than just the mechanics. So there's those skills, and there's also like the human skills. And so those are the things that we have been working on as a team. So we put together right away when we got back to campus, once we got settled, real good structure for them academically. They're meeting regularly with our academic advisor in athletics, each one of them weekly, which was been fantastic. And then what I did was I put together a speaker series. So we ran 4 days of virtual practices. And then in those practices, I invited leaders, women leaders in different industries, some who are our alumni, to come back and speak to our players. And our players then were given some assignments to work on their mental skills, their learning skills as far as golf was concerned, to really take those human skills that we need for golf and expand them and get better at it. So we really tried to use the time, hey, we're not playing, but we're going to give this bonus time for us to get better. So when we come back in the fall, we're ready to go, and we're farther ahead than we expected. And they've done a tremendous job. I'm excited to see what their grades look like, but they've done a really tremendous job, and they're doing well.
2 things that you've mentioned during our conversation already. You mentioned how it'll be the 20th anniversary of women's golf at Monmouth University. You've also mentioned how you're really connected into the alums And I know that that's something, whether your program is 2 years old, whether your program is, has been around as long as Monmouth has, I know it's incredibly important. And I know that although the golf program is a young one for women's golf, it's a very interconnected one.
Yeah, it is. And what's really interesting for me too. So I'm going to really date myself here. But 20 years ago, when women's golf started, I was an assistant coach at Monmouth, and I was a volunteer assistant. So, close your eyes. That's what I got paid to help start the program. And so it's been really interesting to reconnect with our alumni because many of them I knew from the days when I was a young assistant coach at Monmouth. Many of them I've known as a teaching professional in the area. Some of them I gave their first golf lessons to when they were 7. And so now I'm, of course, looking at them at, my age now. And they're a really important part of the history of women's golf. And when I got the job, one of the first things I did was I started to reach out to our alumni. We have some very, very established, successful women who have come through this program. We have one who works for ESPN, vice presidents of banks. These women are just, exceptional. So it was really important for me to have to make it a priority to get them involved with our players. I think they can bring a lot of mentorship to our players who are on the team. We're going to host our first annual alumni event this fall. We're going to get a solid date because we had to move it because of the virus, unfortunately. But and we're going to be celebrating the 20th anniversary of women's golf at Monmouth, and I think it's a pivotal time for us where we can really look back, get our alumni involved, and build on what they did. And they're an important history. They're an important part of our history, and they bring a lot to the table for our young athletes.
Pretty cool how the program and you have kind of come full circle in that time. When you came back a couple of years ago and you see some of the same people walking around, some of the same coaches and upper administration, and I know that you've been around obviously, but the fact that it has done that for you, how was that for you professionally? That from your first time as an assistant coach, year 1, to now leading the program in year 20.
That's an awesome question. I told my players that, and this is interesting, why Monmouth is such a wonderful place, and to see the growth that's happened. So when I started as an assistant coach, the athletic department's offices were in trailers that were by Boylan Gym, and study hall was in there. It's an insane concept now. We look at the multi-million-dollar facilities that we have and the growth of the athletic department and where it's come from. I am so humbled to be part of the program now. There's something about this that for me is very full circle, for sure. And that I get to come back and take this to another level career-wise. I couldn't be happier. And I also have to say something as well. Like one of the first coaches meetings I was in, when I came back a year ago, I looked around the room and I'm like, we have some amazing, amazing professionals at Monmouth. It is such a great group of people who started programs, built programs, took programs to national prominence and they were the first coaches ever. It's a pretty unique thing. And, there's some exceptional people there. So for me to be back, to see the growth of women's golf at Monmouth, to be part of it, be part of the other coaches, it's been really fantastic. I'm going to try to value the time I have right now and our team's going to have, but I cannot wait to get back to campus and I can't wait to compete, and just see what we can do next.
There's a couple of questions coming in. Ironically, they're both from Pennsylvania, but we are going to get kind of a Jersey twist to one of the questions in just a minute, but we have to lead off our questions for Monmouth women's golf coach, Michelle Melia. And our first one comes from Chanel from Pennsylvania. And Chanel wants to know, Michelle, how is recruiting golf, being an individual sport, but part of a team, how is it different than recruiting other sports? Are the high school coaches involved, or do you mainly recruit from junior golf tournaments?
That's an awesome question. Quite honestly, I recruit, I would say 80% of the time from junior golf tournaments. One of the unique things about coaching golf, and that question hits it right on the head, is that golf's an individual sport that we play in a team format on the collegiate level. So one of the things that as a coach, when I'm recruiting, I have this conversation with all of my recruits that have you been part of a team sport? Have you played other sports? And starting to kind of like plant that seed early on that this is a little bit of a different kind of animal than a lot of golfers have been accustomed to. So to answer the question, high school golf is important for sure, but 80% of what I do and what I'm looking at is junior events. A lot of the high school events in the country are 9-hole matches. On the collegiate level, we're looking for players that are playing in 18, 36, 54-hole events and seeing what they could do in that type of format. So the high school piece is important, but the junior golf piece carries a little bit more weight.
And you want to see those potential student athletes, like you said, play what they would be used to playing in college, right? Playing the amount of holes that they'll be playing, the adversity that comes with not just playing 9 but playing 18. I'm sure that's important as well.
Without a doubt, Eddie. So like what I'm looking at for recruits are young women who are used to playing under those type of conditions. I'm also looking, especially in the Northeast, I'm looking for players that have grit. And what I mean by that is a lot of times in the Northeast, especially on the collegiate level, our players don't get enough credit for the type of conditions that they play in. So, we kind of have a joke with our program that coach never cancels practice. And coach never cancels practice because there's times that we're going to play in 35, 40-degree weather in the end of October on golf courses that play 200 yards longer than they would play in the summer. So we want to see players who have the ability to play at longer distances in junior golf over multiple days, and who are also kind of have the same value and framework that I have, that we never cancel practice. Just a funny story about that too. There's an ongoing urban legend in my family that every time it rained and an event was canceled, my mom had to drive me to the golf course to prove to me that the event was canceled. There's never an off day in that sense. So those are the type of players that we're looking for. And honestly, Eddie, to answer that question even a little bit more, those are the players that will do well at this level, right? Who will be successful. So if you have a young junior golfer out there who is looking to play Division I golf, they need to be playing in events that are maybe feel a little bit over their heads, maybe at the moment, but they need that experience so they can be successful at the next level.
So if you have aspirations to play for Coach Melia, come here and know that it doesn't matter what's going on outside. You got to get the zip up going, and you got to be ready to golf in any kind of weather. That's our first question that comes in for Michelle Melia, the Monmouth women's golf coach. Next question also comes from Pennsylvania, but it has something to do with what's going on in New Jersey. And funny enough, we're having this conversation today with some of the news that's come out recently from Governor Murphy. And Rich, from just outside of the Philadelphia area, wanted to get your opinion on the reopening of golf courses. There's another question in the queue that I'll follow that up with, but I'm excited for it. I know you are as well, but I know there's going to be certain kind of qualifiers that come with our excitement, Michelle.
No doubt. I know everyone's super excited. And golfers, this goes back to, we play in all kinds of weather. So the virus isn't going to stop us because we're going to want to keep playing to our detriment probably at times. But I'm excited. I'm excited that the golf courses are opening. But what I would say is that we need to, follow the regulations and keep our foot a little bit on the brake before we go running out and playing like we were, in normal times. There's been a lot of criticism of the regulations and some of the things that they put into place. But quite honestly, I think they're there for the right reasons. I think we need to be smart. As much as we want to go out and play, let's not go back a month on this, right? We want to keep moving forward so everybody's healthy. So I think they've done a really good job of creating an environment in which they will, there'll be safe measures. What they're doing, Eddie, is moving rakes out of the bunkers. They put in like almost an automatic 2 putts. Most of the golf courses are inverting the cups with the flag stick so the ball can't go in, and limiting the amount of players per hour. So instead of like a 10-minute tee time, it's going to be 16 minutes. You can only play in twosomes. A lot of it's common sense, and a lot of it makes perfect sense with what we're trying to accomplish. So yeah, I'm selfishly excited. Of course, I know that my players are excited because they feel like they've been handcuffed. But at the same time, I think we need to be smart about what we're doing and heed the advice that the health officials have put forward.
Another question in on the same topic for Monmouth women's golf coach Michelle Melia, and if you saw Governor Murphy starting, I believe it's this Saturday at Sunrise, parks and golf courses will be open under very strict rules. This question comes in from Joe, and Joe wants to know what will be the first place, Michelle, that you will play when courses open up.
That's a great question. I'm gonna, it's funny because my driving range has been on the beach here for the last 2 months. Jumping Brook Country Club, which is our home course for Monmouth University Golf, and I can't wait to get out there. I've only sent Mark, the head pro there, a million text messages like, when are we opening up and when can I come back? But that's where I'll be playing.
You've mentioned it, the beach is where Monmouth is. It's your home. Thankfully I'm a walk to it as well. And you're very involved in the local community. And before we get to some of the questions coming up, recently, a great organization gave you a pretty great honor. And I think it's one worth mentioning. I know it's not easy for coaches to talk about themselves, but the First Tee organization here at the Jersey Shore, Michelle, honored you as their ACE Award winner for the year for your involvement, not just with shore golf, but with youth golf as well. And I know those are two things that tie passions of yours together, this area and youth golf development together.
Yeah, Eddie, I was surprised when I got the news. Tara Kelly, who's the executive director of the First Tee, sent me a cryptic text message, hey, we want to take you out to lunch. And I realized 30 minutes into it, we weren't talking business. I didn't know why I was there. And she told me that I was going to be the honoree this year. I was so humbled by it. I started playing golf. I come from a very blue collar background, and only really got into golf. I'm the only one in my family who plays, which is unusual. But got into golf because I lived 5 houses from a public golf course, and was really, very privileged in the sense that I had a lot of golf pros donate time and clubs and help really mentor me until I got into college. I had a golf pro who charged my father $15 for an hour lesson. An hour lesson right now is probably $110. So because of that, and kind of because of my roots, I've always donated time to the First Tee and been very involved with their program. I think it's important. I think there are a lot of young people, especially that they touch, that if they didn't have the First Tee come into their schools, they probably would never have an opportunity to hold a golf club. And whether they play golf down the road or not, it gives them a chance to at least be exposed to it. Golf is so interesting to me, Eddie, because to me it should be our pastime in a sense. It's a very adaptable game. So there are people who play who are stroke survivors. You don't have to run. You can play. It's a lifetime game. You can play into your 80s or 90s. But for a lot of people growing up, if they don't have the means, they don't have an opportunity to be exposed to it. So that's been a passion for me. So any time an opportunity, if I get a call from the First Tee or a youth organization, for the last 20 years, I'm the first one to say, yeah, count me in, whatever I can do, and be a part of it. So it's it means a lot to me. That organization reaches almost 1,000 young people at the Jersey Shore. So they've done a really great job of reaching out. It's great for the community, and I'm hoping that we get to play Amatiticon on August 2nd, the day of the event, and it'll be a great honor to be recognized by them.
Well, and a very well-deserved honor, and congratulations again for that tremendous award. The questions are starting to pile up, so now it's time to get to a few of them. And now we turn our attention to, it's interesting how you gave that story of how you got into the game of golf. Well, now a question comes in from Catherine from Monroe, and she wants to know, who is your coaching mentor, be it golf or other sports, but who do you look up to in the coaching profession?
It's a great question. I tell you what, I was my mentor for sure. From a coaching perspective, is not a professional coach. So I would say it was my father. So my father introduced me to the game. Was a guy that was really about possibilities, about opportunities, about working hard. So he really was. He was a tremendous mentor to me growing up. Currently, if I had to pick two coaches or coaches that I look up to, is Pia Nilsson and Lynn Marriott, who run a program called Vision 54. They have revolutionized the way golf is being coached. And the concept of 54, Eddie, is that if you birdied every hole, you would be 18 under par, and that would be 54. So they are in the business of creating limitless opportunities for people and possibilities. Probably ties right into a lot of what my father taught me growing up, and is really, I think, it's guided me as a coach.
That was a great answer, Michelle. And this next question comes in, and I can't wait to read it to you because I can't wait to get your answer. It comes in, Lynn from Jackson wants to know, it's a two-part question. First off, what is the all-time favorite course you've ever played? And then the second part to that question, you can have any golf foursome in history. It's you and three other people. Who are those other three people going to be? So favorite course ever, and then who are the other three people that you're playing in that all-time foursome? Golfers or just figures from history?
Great. Okay, here we go. That's an awesome question. My all-time favorite course. That's a very tough question. It is the Orchards up at Mount Holyoke. Mount Holyoke College's home course. It's called the Orchards. It was built by Donald Ross. It was a Donald Ross design. No one knows of it, but they had the 2006 U.S. Women's Open. Of course, I remember who won. It was Meg Mallon, one of my favorite golfers of all time. And it's a favorite. In fact, I had an opportunity to go up there 2 years ago, went to a Red Sox opening day game. The next day, I went to the golf course, and it snowed. And I played 9 holes in the snow because I didn't want to, lose the opportunity to play there because I hadn't played there since college. So that's a very special place for me and in my golf career. When I was at Rutgers University, we played there regularly. So it's dear to my heart. Foursome. Nancy Lopez, Annika Sorenston. This is tough. And I think Jack Nicklaus. I like it. Yeah, that would be the group. So Nancy Lopez, when I was a kid, was the person that I was like in awe of, and was a role model. But that was
easy question, but a great answer, and that would be a fun one to watch. That would be awesome. I could carry the bag for you four. I could do that. Maybe help drive the car if we're allowed to. The other questions coming in, actually, Michelle, kind of bring me right into what I wanted to talk to you about next, and it's about your team now. We have 2 questions in the queue coming up. I have a few things that I want to pick your brain about, so we'll start with another question about your current team, and it comes from Tim from East Rutherford, and Tim wants to know, if there was a longest drive competition held with the members of your team right now, who would win?
Wow, great question. Great question. Amanda Hart. It would be close. Amanda Hart. Amanda Hart is a sophomore from Homedale. Amanda was a standout basketball player, still is, but played basketball at RBC and played golf. And is probably one of the best athletes I've ever coached. From an athletic standpoint, generates a ridiculous amount of club head speed. Her driver, she swings over 100 miles an hour, which is longer than most LPGA Tour players. So I would say it would be Amanda Hart. And then Elizabeth Liddy McCook, who is a freshman, who I'm sure right now, if she's watching, is going to do more push-ups to make sure that she beats Amanda after I just said that. They're super competitive kids. She would be right next to that. Yeah. So it would definitely be Amanda.
I know when we were talking and getting ready for this, the thing that was, I think, the most evident, Michelle, in our conversation was just how excited and how just really overjoyed you are with this program, with the individuals in the program, with where they're headed. Next year, right, and knock on wood, next year looks like we all want it to. A challenging schedule in front of an emerging team, and I know that those are two things that are very important to you. Challenging these student athletes, and you could not have been more complimentary of the group of young women that you'll be coaching next year.
Yeah, Eddie, they are just a tremendous group. I think that there's really a couple things I want to say about them as a group. Last year, the first year I was there was a big transition year, right? So I take the program over, and I have to give Cassie Gavigan, our junior captain, Amanda Hart, who, again, we were just talking about, sophomore, but she was a freshman at the time, and Mackenzie Matarese, who was a freshman walk-on, a tremendous amount of credit, because I walked in and really changed their world in the sense that the first question out of some of their mouths were, what do you mean we're running at 7 a.m.? And how far are we running? And how long are we running? And where are we going? And those type of things. And these guys really embraced what we were trying, what my vision was. And it's my vision, but it became our vision. And I think that's a big important piece of this. This team is really, it's an our. It's an a we. It's not an I. And they were tremendous in helping me build and helping us build a culture that was completely changed. So after that occurred, with those three, I was really wanted to bring in a group of kids that were going to, build around them, because they were such a strong nucleus, right? Kind of representing the past and the future at the same time. So I was very fortunate that Elizabeth McCook, Paige Asiju, jumped on board very early when they came in for their recruiting visits. The two of them are probably two of the most talented golfers I've taught from a golf perspective. They're tremendous. They're competitors. And we're going to see a lot of great things from them. I mean, I got to a point, Eddie, and you want to pinch yourself. I have our top four players who I just really talked about, right? Amanda, Cassidy, Paige, and Liddy. The four of them could win any tournament that we go to participate in. I mean, that's a really nice feeling as a coach, and we're super young. And then was able really to bring in a couple kids who are also fantastic in their talent, even if their experience level wasn't at that next spot. So that was Claire Orr, who's a freshman from Florida, Mia Sutton from Scotch Plains, New Jersey. She's done fantastic for us. Isabel Vance, and Mackenzie Matarese, who also returned, and she's been also fantastic. So like from top to bottom, I can't be more happy as a coach, because they're just really fantastic kids and really good parts, really good team members. The one thing that I did try to do, you're talking about strength of schedule, was really to challenge them. So I had learned this really kind of the hard way. When I was at Fairleigh Dickinson University, I started the women's program there. And my first full year with a full recruit of kids reminded me a lot of this team. We played, we won 7 tournaments. We won the conference and went to the NCAAs. It was great. But in retrospect, I didn't really prepare them for the NCAAs. So when we got to regionals and we got off, out of the van, and there's electronic scoreboards all over the place, and the fairways are roped off. I had 7 players who the biggest tournament they saw that year was the Rutgers Invitational. So I realized pretty quickly that, especially when you have a group of talented kids, which we have, who want to be pushed, we need to get them involved in opportunities that are outside of like their comfort zone. So we've been able and fortunate to play the Kiawah Island Classic 2 years in a row. This past year was 54 teams at that event, which is an incredible number. When we were on our way to Hilton Head, we were going down to play in Woodford College's event, which is a very challenging event, which would have really our kids would have had an opportunity to kind of expand their kind of, competitive experience. And then we got invited to Boston College's event in the fall. So, and I, like a little kid, was so excited because we got invited. So, we're starting to make a name for ourselves, but also it's purposeful that I want these girls to have an opportunity to really expand their competitive experience, get tougher, get stronger, and be used to playing at a higher level, because that's really where they deserve to be playing. And that's such a compliment to them. They are tremendous. And I'm happy that we're able to give them that opportunity to do some great things out there and get better.
A few of the themes, Michelle, that you've spoken about, and you can just tell in some of the answers that you give, not only your team, but you're a very competitive person. And I think you can get that in a lot of the answers. So our next question comes in from a coworker of ours, Tom Bieber. And Tom has a very good question for you. It ties into the overall student-athlete experience at Monmouth. And Tom wants to know how soon it will be before women's golf overtakes women's soccer for the top women's team GPA. What do you got?
That is great. Next year. Give us a year, Tom. And that's so true, because we talk about it as a team. We're trying to. I know. Here's the crazy thing about Monmouth, right? So that's such a great question. We had like a 3.5 cum, and I feel like we didn't do anything. And because women's soccer, has it like a 3.8 as a team. They've just done such a tremendous job. So, we got them on our radar. We're coming after Coach Turner, and we want to be part of that as well. And that's such a great question. And here's the other thing too, Eddie. I have to say that as a value as a team, one of the things I wanted to do, and our girls felt the same way, is that I want them to get more involved, right? So one, going after the high GPA, and that's one thing, but also being involved with community service and like MSAC. So Cass Gavigan just got nominated to the E-Board. I got some kids who I would say all of them are super talented and super creative and very, very bright, that they can offer a lot to the athletic department and the culture as well. So yeah, we're competitive on all levels. Playing field, GPA, getting involved, and being part of something that's great. It's great.
Yeah, not just competitive on the course, but competitive on campus. I like that across all aspects of the student-athlete experience. Michelle, it was great to be able to catch up and hear not only that you're well, but the team is doing well also. And again, wish you just continued health and continued optimism for a return to normal soon. And I know that you'll be on a course soon as well. So please be safe, please be healthy, and I appreciate you giving us a little bit of time.
Eddie, thanks so much. It was such a pleasure talking with you, and I knew this was going to be fun. This is my three most favorite topics to discuss. So thanks again. I hope you stay safe as well, and looking forward to be back on campus in the fall, hopefully.
Well, thank you very much. That's Michelle Melia, the women's golf coach here at Monmouth University. Our Hawk Talk series continues. We move into our third week next week. And on Tuesday night at 7 p.m., I'll be joined by the head track and field and cross country coach here at Monmouth University. Mike Nelson will join me this coming Tuesday at 7 p.m. If you miss any of our Hawk Talks, they're available by going onto the Facebook page of the athletics department and searching the video section there. You can also go on the athletics department's YouTube page as well as monmouthhawks.com. For Coach Michelle Melia, I'm Eddie Acapinti saying good night here on Hawk Talk.